Hey, everybody. This is my second interview with Brian Cates, the political columnist from Epoch Times and Uncover DC. We recorded this interview June 19th, 2021 at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And today we were talking about election fraud in the United States, including a summary of Brian's must-see interview with Colonel Waldron, and I'll put a link to that interview here in the show notes, and the latest developments on the election audits in Arizona, Georgia, Colorado, and Pennsylvania. We're also talking about a fascinating story that is emerging about the early Trump administration 2017 investigation into criminal leaking. And this investigation was against top members of Congress. And there were no leaks about this investigation, no knowledge that it was happening, except by a few people, including Brian. And now it's coming out that this investigation has been going on for over 4 years now. Also, we're going to talk about the Mueller special counsel and the Russia hoax. And we're talking about how red states today are coordinating an end run around the Biden administration. And finally, we talk about how January 6th was actually a false flag and all the information that is coming out about that. So enjoy. Brian, welcome back. It's great to see you again. You must have had a good time the first time since you came back, so thank you.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Had a blast the first time. Looking forward to this one too.
Okay. So it's been about 11 days since we last spoke, and quite a few developments. There's so many news stories. We've agreed we can only cover about 3 or 4 of them in an hour because there's so much going on. Yesterday or the day before, you did an interview with Colonel Waldron, and you were talking about election fraud. Could you summarize that interview for us? And I will link everyone here to that interview.
Sure. That interview was with Colonel Waldron and Russ Ramsland, and they are cybersecurity experts, and they have been heavily involved in the uncovering of the election fraud, appearing as expert witnesses and gathering evidence. And since November, they've been on the front lines, and so I was interviewing them and a lady named Teresa Beckmeyer. He's like a citizen activist.
Right.
And they're watching. They're really encouraged by watching these audits are spreading to other states. The Arizona audit is going to be ending soon, and the final results will be announced sometime. And I believe it's early August. They'll be announcing it. But audits are starting up in Georgia. There's very likely going to be audits in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and many of these other states. So we discussed that a little bit. And then during the interview, Colonel Waldron dropped a bombshell. He talked about a Freedom of Information Act request that had been made, and they got their hands on some of Dominion's emails. Now, there was a primary shortly before the November election, and they were using Dominion machines in the primary, and they were having trouble getting the machines to correctly scan the images. And so in these emails, Dominion executives are discussing how they fixed the problem. They did that by remotely adjusting the machines. The machines that they've been claiming for going on 7 months now, 8 months now, are not connected to the internet. They're discussing in the emails how they remotely adjusted the firmware or the software the machines that are working with, and they can, from I guess their offices in Colorado or wherever, they can remotely adjust these machines to improve their performance. Yeah. And the only way they can do that is if they're on the internet. So it was a very interesting interview. They're very encouraged by what they're seeing. They had like 12 different states, it may be 13 now, state groups from other states toured the Maricopa County audit venue, and they ask a lot of questions, and they're learning how to set up their own state audits. And it's not cheap, and it takes a lot of money, it takes manpower, and so that's where Teresa came in, and she talked about how people can volunteer and get active and get involved in this audit movement that's breaking out all over the country.
Yeah. So, is there any plausible reason that Dominion would need to update the machines remotely? Like they said, firmware. But why would they? What is their reason for accessing the machines?
Well, they said they were scanning the digital images of the ballots, and it was taking a long time, and they was very slow, and sometimes they were getting incomplete images, and so somebody said, well, we'll just remotely recalibrate everything and improve the performance. And you need to remember, I made this point to Colonel Waldron and Russ Ramsden and Ms. Beckmeyer during the interview yesterday. They never expected any of this to come out. They've been boldly lying to everybody's faces ever since November 3rd, when they keep repeatedly claiming that these machines are not connected to the internet, they're not connected to Wi-Fi, you can't remotely access them. This idea that people were hacking in there and switching votes, it's absurd. They've been saying this for 8 months. And now we have emails showing that they are discussing being able to remotely recalibrate these machines. And I also pointed out during the interview that in his court filing in Minnesota that he made 2 weeks ago, Mike Lindell had as part of his evidence the fact that election officials discussed how Dominion remotely updated all of their machines nationwide the day before the November 3rd election, that they were sending out digital information to update all these machines. And so this lie that they've been telling for 8 months, that these machines were not connected to the internet, they never thought it would ever come out. They thought people would have given up and moved on by now, that the intense media pressure would have worked, that, calling anybody who said there was election fraud a lunatic or censoring them on social media or whatever, this would make the problem go away. And now we're like 8 months into this, and the lies are coming out, the lies are being exposed, and this is with documentation. This is their own emails discussing they're doing this. So we're seeing a lot of important developments on the election fraud.
Yeah. Explain to the audience why this lie, this obvious lie about not being able to access the machines remotely is such a big deal. So we know now that they did access the machines, that they can access the machines. And like you said, they've been lying about that. Why is that lie such a big deal?
Well, they're lying about the machines being able to be hacked into. See, they want to claim that this was the most secure election in American history. And from the very beginning, they have been, the Dominion executives, Smartmatic, ES&S, they've all been saying the same thing. These people are crazy. They talk about, our machines are able to be hacked. Are you nuts? They're not even on the internet. What the hell are these people talking about? It's like a shoplifter. I once saw a shoplifter in a store, and the security guard was trying to detain them. And the shoplifter was, you ever see somebody do the fast walking, fast talking thing? I don't have anything. I don't understand what about. Why are you hassling me? I don't have anything. Get out of my face, man. I was walking through the door. And the minion thought they could try that. The shoplifter didn't make it, by the way. He didn't make it to the door. But the minion's been trying that for 8 months now. Fast walking, fast talking. You people are lunatics. These machines aren't on the internet. What are you talking about? Okay, and they figured that we would have all given up by now. People would have moved on. They would have finally have accepted the theft. What was the alternative? Yeah, you're right. Sure, machines are on the internet. Foreign states hacked into them. They switched votes. Our machines, the system that we're using. Russ Rambin showed a very good graph during that interview. He showed a loop where all the county election results are sent to these main headquarters, and they're actually sent out of the country to foreign servers, where they're tabulated correctly, and then they're sent back. And somewhere during that loop, man, there are hundreds of vulnerabilities there. There are hundreds of ways people can hack into them. And so it's important. This is important because they claimed right from the start, nobody can hack into these machines, or not even on the internet. You people are all a bunch of lunatics for even saying that any vote switching could happen, And now the evidence is coming out.
Yeah.
It's evidence. It's not conjecture at this point. We have documentary evidence that they've been lying from the beginning about this. And so the question comes up, if they're lying about something this obvious and easily provable, what else are they lying about?
Yeah, likely everything. So I think you said that the Arizona audit is going to fully wrap up in August, and a lot of people are wondering why it's taking so long. They finished the hand count of the ballots last week. I heard that the tally of those ballots will be done this coming week. Is that true? Like, if there's missing ballots, we should know the number within a few days?
Okay. They want to announce all the official results at once. They don't want to break it out over a period of days or weeks. Yes, the hand recount, the counting of the paper ballots, is going to be done in the next 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
But the examination of the digital data is going to take some time. That's being done up in Montana. I believe the guy that owns the Cyber Ninjas thing, or the Surfer, I'm not sure how to say that. He had the headquarters in Montana. So if he's up there, it's going to take him some time to examine all of the digital information. And so that all needs to come out together. They want to announce it all together. So that's why it won't be ready until August.
I see. What about this story I've been seeing that, everything has been moved to Montana, some cabin in the woods, and they're probably tampering with the data up in Montana.
Okay. That's I mean, this is a top of the line government affiliated group doing this.
Yes.
Let me
Cypher, CYFIR,
Cypher
I think.
Digital Forensics. Okay, they work with the NSA. They work with the DSA. They work with. I mean, this is a company that's been used by some of the biggest intelligence agencies and networks in the federal government. They are secure. The government knows who these people are. They're not handing this stuff to just anybody. Okay, so this is a somebody that handles the most top secret, most sensitive NSA stuff, and they have for years. So the idea that it's like a cabin in the woods, yes, that's how the media attempts to sell this, and they've done nothing but attack the audit since it started. It's just a bunch of hick rednecks up there in their cabin in Montana. Who knows what they're doing up there? That's how they're trying to sell it. And it's absurd. If you research Cypher, you'll see what they are. That they have. They've been taking government contracts, and they've been dealing with some of the most highly classified information in the federal government for a long time now. So,
so huge developments out of Georgia. The phone call with President Trump and Brad Raffensperger and a few other people on that call. I can't remember if it was November or December 2020. The call that was edited and leaked. And President Trump was saying, look, we have heard reports about this and we've heard reports about that. Brad Raffensperger on that call is saying, you're wrong, Mr. President. You're wrong. We verified everything. Everything is perfect. The most secure election in history. 3-4 days ago, Raffensperger does a complete 180 and says, we've just heard that there's problems with the chain of custody documents and we need to investigate it. So what happened in Georgia? Why this sudden flip from Raffensperger?
Well, this is not new information.
No.
We knew this stuff back in November. Yet there were reports that were made that showed that these hundreds of thousands of ballots did not have any chain of custody.
Mm-hmm.
That's absentee ballots, the mail-in ballots had no chain of custody. This was known for months. Yes. I have a good friend named Saul Marcus Bradley. He said, this is what people need to focus on. There's no the mail-in ballots. Focus on the mail-in ballots. There's no chain of custody here. Maybe you can't prove exactly where these ballots came from, but the fact there's no chain of custody, they never should have been counted in the first place. They should not have counted. They should have been ruled invalid. Why weren't they? And I only went ahead and counted the ballots. They went ahead and certified the election, including all of these ballots. They had no chain of custody for it. Now it's a huge mess. And so now Raffensperger's changing his story. So, okay, we're going to do a full investigation. And then this report, 29-page memo by this Jones guy gets released the other day. He's talking about everything he saw inside the venue, the State Farm Arena, I think it is, that he was there to observe, and he caught them red-handed. I mean, he tries to downplay it himself. He doesn't go in there and throw any bombs and start saying any radical, wild stuff. He says, yeah, I went in there and they had sent everybody home and they said they were going to stop counting, and I found them all still scanning on all 5 machines and counting votes. Well, okay. He's real low-key about it, Yeah, they're still scanning votes there in the middle of the night after they sent everybody home and said they were going to start up again in the morning. I walked in there and they were all 5 scanners were going full blast. Yeah, that's in his report.
And he said people were walking out with boxes. People were coming in with boxes. There seemed to be a lot of confusion. People raising objections to what was happening and being told to shut up. So do you think that report is the reason?
And everybody's seen the video of the lady pulling the container with the ballots out from under the table.
Do you think that report is the reason that Raffensperger seems to all of a sudden be concerned about these issues?
It's one of the reasons, yes. I mean, but a lot of this was known. I don't think there's not much new information in any of this. I studied the timeline, what happened at State Farm Arena. I mean, just days after that happened, all this information was public. They told the observers to go home. They made up some lie about a leaking toilet somewhere, and so we have to send everybody home. We can't. And the thing is, this was coordinated. All the major metropolitan areas. It was Philadelphia and Atlanta. I mean, we talk about the county names and the states, but this was like Philadelphia and Atlanta, and it's all these major urban areas. They all stopped counting simultaneously about 10:30 at night. I mean, the word went out, stop counting. And then they needed to go to Plan B. They needed to get the mail-in ballots into position that they had ready and waiting, and they needed to get those in there and start doing the double counting and triple counting and all this stuff.
Right. I've heard people say that, maybe some of the paperwork wasn't completed correctly in Georgia, but that doesn't mean those ballots aren't real. Explain to us why chain of custody documents are such a big deal.
There's never been mass mail-in voting like there was in 2020.
Right.
Mail-in voting used to be limited to members of the military and people that were invalids or shut in. And the Democrats, of course, have been expanding mail-in balloting. They've done amazing things with it in places like California and Washington State and Oregon. They've done a lot of wonderful things with mail-in balloting, expanding it. And man, when this pandemic hit last year, they saw a golden opportunity and they grabbed it with both hands and they spent months setting this up.
Hmm.
They had Mark Elias of Perkins Coie, the law firm, leading a phalanx of lawyers going to all the battleground states. I don't know how many states they hit. It was something like 30 states, but they hit every key battleground state, going around the state legislatures and saying, you've got, because of this pandemic, you must have mail-in voting. You must make it more easy to vote by mail. And they did deals with the state secretaries of state and the governors. They did deals to get to vastly expand. I mean, you had governors and secretaries of state just basically writing election law by themselves, using emergency powers that they claim they have because of the pandemic.
Hmm.
And so they vastly expanded mail-in balloting. And when you do that, and President Trump spent months warning about this, when you do that, you vastly expand the opportunities for fraud. Because they start talking about how they're going to send a mail-in ballot to every registered voter in the state.
Hmm.
And a lot of these people were getting multiple ballots. There were places where people got 5 or 6 mail-in ballots. Just one person got 5 or 6 mail-in ballots. And the opportunities for fraud are that they grow exponentially the more mail-in ballots you put out there. And when you don't have any chain of custody, you don't know where any of these ballots came from. They can't be traced back to any registered voter. Right. There's no blockchain or there's no QR code or anything. How do you have no idea where that ballot came from when you count it? You have no idea where it came from. And there are actually rules and regulations in Georgia, and this is why Raffensperger is doing such about face, about chain of custody. You've got to have chain of custody. Now it turns out they had over, I think it was 130,000 ballots that they know about so far that have no chain of custody. They should not have been counted. They were counted, and now he's had to say, well, okay, we're going to investigate this. And we've known this since the middle of November that this has been going on. For sure.
And the bottom line is that's the law in Georgia. You can't count those ballots if they don't have the signatures. And I think a reasonable explanation is the people who were involved with fabricating fraudulent ballots didn't want to put their signature on those boxes. So now everybody can say, well, we don't really know where they came from, but they can't be counted. But the people who did it don't want their names and signatures on those boxes.
Yeah, one thing about election fraud is they don't want to. We have a weird situation here in the last 20, 25 years. We moved away from paper ballots with a lot of security features, which is when a lot of these signature requirements were put into place. But now the Democrats have done nothing but attack this and try to weaken it. And it's just, I discussed this yesterday with Colonel Walden. It's amazing to me we still don't have voter ID in many of these states. You can show. I mean, you need a voter ID to pick up prescription drugs at the pharmacy. You need voter ID to fly on a plane. You need, we all know the vast number of things in life that you need an ID for. You need to show an ID with a picture on it to do just about 24 things in this country. But the one thing that you don't need a photo ID for is to vote. And this opens up a lot of chances for fraud. And so it's a basic security measure. It would be easy to implement, and we don't have it. And so you look at the people who were fighting that. They don't want any voter ID in this country. They don't want anybody to show a photo ID to vote. And there's a reason that they do that.
Yeah. I don't think their policies could succeed on their own, and they know it. Nobody would vote for that. So the Secretary of State in Colorado made, I forgot her name, but she made a very hostile comment saying we will never allow these types of audits here. And the Secretary of State of Michigan, Jocelyn Benson, is making very sarcastic comments saying this is really not, Jocelyn Benson, forensic audit is not even a thing. Pass it along. Very sarcastic. So it's interesting. They're popping their heads up and saying, don't take this audit seriously, the Arizona audit.
Yeah, I think she got her FaceTime, and then she got some FaceTime in the afternoon by saying, "Hey, we're not going to have any fake audits here in Colorado. I just created out of thin air.
Mm-hmm.
I waved my hand, and this new regulation against audits in the state of Colorado magically appeared. Okay, and I got
Right.
some news for Jocelyn Benson. Uh, that is not how it works. You don't just wave your hand and say, "Look, I just all by myself, I just created a new election regulation or law in the state of Colorado." That is, Democrats would probably love for it to work that way, but it does not work that way. So she can wave her hand and do all the talking she wants to. It doesn't really change anything. It's up to the Colorado state legislature.
Yes. And looks to me like an admission of guilt. Like, why would you even say something like that unless you knew that there were problems in your state? So,
well, I'll tell you what, there are a lot of states that flipped from blue or that flipped from red to blue recently.
mm-hmm.
Virginia, Colorado in the last couple of election cycles. And I guarantee you, because we now have gotten a brutal education on what has been happening with our election system, how many vulnerabilities it has, how corrupt it is. Okay, they do not want anybody going back and re-examining any of those past elections to figure out just how long have they been leaving that door open, and people have been coming in there and switching votes electronically. They don't want anybody looking into that. And so I think that's what motivated the Colorado Secretary of State to suddenly speak up, because there are a lot of elections, recent elections, where I'm pretty sure 2020 is not unique. They've been doing this for a while, and they don't want anybody examining this.
Right. So I want to shift gears here. I recall Trump Jr. was called in to testify multiple times before Congress in secret about the Russia thing. And he would come out and he would say, how is it that I'm in the room and what I allegedly spoke about is all over CNN and MSNBC before I'm even finished? How is that possible? So, and what really irritated me about that was the arrogance of the people that we knew were leaking. Like, we could see it. Sure. And they were so arrogant about it. You wrote a great article last week about why this revelation that just came in the last week or two from Apple Computer was so shocking to these guys. Like, they had no idea what was happening. That explains their arrogance for the last 3 years, because they had no idea that this investigation was happening. So tell us what happened with the leak investigation.
Adam Schiff, okay, do you know what the Gang of Eight is?
Yeah.
The Gang of
Explain it to us. Yeah.
He's on the Gang of Eight.
Mm-hmm.
You know how wired into the national security and intelligence and even the law enforcement apparatus you are if you sit on the Gang of Eight? Because they can't do supposedly they can't do anything without making you aware of it. The FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, the NSA, the DIA, they all report to you. Yeah. Anything they're doing, it's intelligence oversight.
Right.
They're supposed to be wired in. So this is why people like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and all these other leakers in Congress, they've been so confident that nothing was ever going to happen to them. Because how in the world do you sneak up on somebody who is wired into the national security apparatus like that? I mean, they would see you coming a mile away. And we found out this past week that somebody who's really smart figured out a way to sneak up on Adam Schiff and all these other guys. That I'm sure Mark Warner and some of these other guys that were in that Gang of Eight were leaking. Yeah. And so they had no idea. They had no idea that their phone data was being accessed. Phone data, email, text messages. It was all being accessed by a federal grand jury via subpoena. And that subpoena was renewed for 3 years in a row. And it wasn't until, I believe, it would have been April April or February. And I think that I know what the date was for the original subpoena. It was February 8th. Oh, February 6th, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
February 6th, 2018. So they renewed it 3 years in a row, and the fourth year they decided not to renew it, and it expired probably sometime in April.
Mm-hmm.
And Apple didn't get around to alerting all of the people that had been having their phone data and their email data accessed until May 5th
Mm-hmm.
of this year.
Right.
So I'm sure when he got that alert, Adam Schiff could not believe it.
Yeah. Right. So Apple was ordered not to reveal that they were disclosing these emails to a grand jury, but that restriction expired in April. And so now they're allowed to notify the parties, hey, we had to turn over all your communications.
Yeah. Apple received a non-disclosure order from a federal magistrate judge in Washington, D.C. They received that order too. They don't just hand you a subpoena, okay? They hand you a non-disclosure order from a judge. And what that means is, if you get caught trying to notify anybody that's involved in this, the consequences are very severe because this is a matter of national security, And so for 3 years, they don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment that non-disclosure order expired, there's no legal reason why they can't, so they did.
Right.
Notify everybody.
So just to explain to everybody, the Gang of Eight, it's 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, both in the House and the Senate. So they are looped in to everything that has to do with national security, those 8 people. And it's always 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, regardless of who has the majority.
Yeah, and the current Gang of Eight is Adam Schiff and Devin Nunes in the House. It's also Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy, who are the leaders. It's just the two guys, 2 top-ranking Republican and Democratic members on the House Intelligence Committee, and the House Speaker and the Minority Leader. That's 4 of them. And then the Senate is the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's why it's Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, but it's also Marco Rubio and Mark Warner, who's the ranking Democrat. Of course, now, Warner's the chairman now, I believe.
Yeah. Makes sense. So you said someone very smart figured this out. I think Bill Barr and Jeff Sessions said they didn't know about it. Who do you think set this up? And why is this a big deal?
Oh, I have a pretty good idea.
Okay.
The person who set this up was Rod Rosenstein.
Wow.
The guy everybody thinks is the snake.
Right. Interesting.
I've written columns where I talk about the fact that, Jeff Sessions has accused himself, I believe it was March 2nd or 3rd of 2017, he accused himself of having anything to do with any Trump-Russia collusion hoax-related investigation.
Mm-hmm.
This is because I keep saying this, people, it doesn't really seem to sink in, but they were spying on Jeff Sessions when he was a member of the Trump campaign.
Yes.
In 2015 and 2016, before the election, they were spying on him. They were accessing his emails. They were accessing his text messages. They were spying on him. Okay. And they were spying on him and accessing his electronic data when he was a member of the Trump transition team from November to January. They were spying on him. And after he took the oath of office and he became the nation's attorney general, they were spying on him. They were still accessing his texts and emails and his phone calls.
Yeah.
So he can't be in charge of investigating the people who did that.
Right. It makes sense.
That's non-negotiable. He cannot be in charge of that. So he recused himself in early March. March 2nd or 3rd. I have time to look it up. But I know it was very early March. And so that meant that whoever became his deputy attorney general was going to be the guy handling all this Trump-Russia stuff. And I believe it was Rod Rosenstein, was confirmed by the Senate on April 26th of 2017. And so right from the get-go, Rosenstein hits the ground running. Within a matter of weeks, by the end of May, here's what's going on. Very publicly, the Mueller Special Counsel has been created, very publicly, done out in the open. I remember James Comey leaking his memos to the New York Times, to his professor buddy, Richmond, and coming in to testify, and not really telling Congress anything, but he's successful. He calls for a special counsel. So we need a special counsel. Damn it, we need a special counsel to investigate all of this. And then Rod Rosenstein gives them what they want. They get a special counsel. They even get the special counsel they want. They get Bob Mueller, former FBI director. Okay, but at the same time, that's going on very quietly behind the scenes. Without any fanfare. Rosenstein turns around and says to veteran U.S. prosecutor John Durham, okay, John, you're on the Spygate beat. You go find out who did all this leaking, who leaked the Flynn phone call, who targeted Cody Page with these leaks of classified information. You find out who was leaking out of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. And we know this because by April 2017, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page are exchanging text messages. They're worried.
Yes.
They thought that the Spygate stuff was going to be handled in-house. There was nothing to worry about. Their own people. And, the FBI had its own national security division called the NSD. They expected the NSD, that would be handed to the NSD, and nothing would ever come of it. Okay, and they're exchanging text messages in April or May of 2017. They just found out that the NSD is not going to get the leak investigation. It's being given to John Durham. And now by the middle of May 2017, they're exchanging text messages about having to go in and do interviews with John Durham. So, and of course, none of this became public. We didn't know any of this had happened until like October of 2020. When they finally unredacted Durham's name and these text messages that Strzok and Page have been exchanging with each other. So, very publicly, and I'm not making this up. There's a very strong circumstance or case. This is what happened. Rosenstein comes in April, immediately appoints Mueller and gets the Mueller special counsel going publicly, and quietly, secretly, he puts Durham on the hunt. What's basically a leak hunt. It's a leak hunt. See, at the same time that's going on, by the end of the summer, you have a special an FBI counterintelligence unit that has been created to do nothing but hunt down the Spygate leakers. Rosenstein and Sessions revealed this had happened. They did that. I believe it was in July. They say that this unit has been created. And by, I think it's November of that year, Sessions gives an update. He says there's 27 currently ongoing leak investigations at the DOJ. And so you have, and they didn't advertise any of this. So everybody's looking at Mueller. Everybody's, wow, what's going to leak from the Mueller investigation today? And all this public attention. The walls are closing in on Trump. So they gave these people what they wanted. See, they gave them what they wanted. Everybody focused on that. Nobody knew about Durham. People promptly forgot about this counterintelligence leak hunt unit. And nobody knew a damn thing. See, about the grand jury. I believe that grand jury was likely seated by the end of 2017. When they sat down and they started doing their investigation, the first order of business wasn't to start sending out subpoenas. in February of 2018. I believe that grand jury had been meeting for a while before it got to that point. So I think they sat that grand jury down in 2017, maybe in, just spitballing, just guessing, October or September of 2017. And by February, they're starting to send out subpoenas targeting members of Congress.
Yeah. That's so interesting. People think that if it's not in the news, it's not a big story. And if it is in the news, it's a big story, right? And that's what we saw with the Mueller investigation and these apparent Durham investigations. So, Pete, you said that a lot of people think Rosenstein is a snake. And I think the three biggest reasons are the Mueller investigation, which he initiated. He appointed Robert Mueller. And then rumors that he offered to wear a wire to spy on Donald Trump. And he was openly discussing the possibility of invoking the 25th Amendment against Donald Trump. I don't know if those rumors are true, but that's the reason I would say people say Rod Rosenstein is a snake. How do you reconcile those two things?
Well, allow me to point this out.
Sure.
Who's the source for these stories that Rosenstein offered the world wire to take credit? And Rosenstein offered to try to invoke the 25th Amendment to replace Donald Trump. I'll tell you their names, and we know who they are. James Comey and Andrew McCabe. Interesting. Those are the sources. Now, if you trust anything James Comey says, if at this point you still find Andrew McCabe a believable person, okay, that's fine. Because I don't. I look at what happened, what's coming out, okay, what has come out. And you realize there's only one person that's in a position to handle all of this. And I don't know if you know, he has mentioned Thomas Wichter before. Did you know by the end of 2017, Thomas Wichter and I were kicking around a theory on Twitter that the Mueller special counsel was set up as a huge distraction to keep the media looking in the wrong direction and not digging in and trying to uncover something that nobody should know about yet. Right. And that the Mueller special counsel was being set up to be investigated itself. We just didn't know who was going to be investigating it yet. Wichter and I were talking about this. Of course, we now know, thanks to William Barr on his way out the door in December 2020, that Durham is investigating Mueller. Durham's scope was expanded to include an investigation into the activities of the Mueller special counsel. Yeah. I'm not making that up. That's a fact. That was reported in the news. Okay, so now on top of that, we just discovered the federal grand jury that was meeting 3 years and utter complete secrecy.
Right.
No leaks. And investigating who? Who is the federal grand jury investigating? Well, it's investigating members of the Gang of Eight. It's investigating some of the most powerful politicians and most connected people in the federal government. And nobody knew about
Amazing.
it. And nothing leaked about it for over 3 years.
Yep. Amazing.
And so when people tell me, hey, Rod Rosenstein is a snake, Rod Rosenstein is a bad guy, all I can say now is everything that me and Wichter were kicking around in 2017 is coming to light. And it turns out that, it's looking really good now.
Yeah. And one benefit of the Mueller investigation is those of us who liked Trump didn't know the truth of all these ridiculous rumors about Russia and collusion and stuff like that. And we find out that it was completely bogus. It was a totally made up story. We might not have known that if the Mueller investigation never completed. So that's kind of a side benefit, I think.
I had people telling me the whole time I was on Twitter, man, you're one screwed up dude. You realize the Mueller investigation is never going to end, right? It will never end. It will certainly not end before the 2020 election. I said,
Right.
well, okay, and here's the thing. Here's where a lot of people do themselves a disservice. They allow themselves to get emotionally involved in the story. They allow themselves to get, journalism is not for you to vent, okay? Journalism is about facts. Journalism is about going where the facts take you, okay? So I look at the Mueller investigation and I knew there is no Russian collusion. And they spent years with people supposedly from inside the Mueller investigation. I don't really think those people were inside. That's using GPSs and people like that selling crap to the media. That's who that really is. Okay.
Yeah.
And I knew there was no Russian collusion, so whatever the hell Mueller's doing, he's not investigating any Russian collusion. And all these stories that appear in the media about the walls closing in on Trump and General Flynn is singing like a canary, and Roger Stone is flipped and Michael Cohen flipped. I knew that was all crap. Okay. And so
right.
Mueller had nothing. He just wasted 22 months and then caught he indicted the people on a bunch of stuff that wasn't even related to the election. He found people that evaded taxes, money laundering, or the old tried and true perjury trap. That's all he had. Okay, that's all he spent 22 months doing, and 32 something million dollars. That's all he was doing. Okay, and
yeah. Yep, so true. So want to shift topics now to red states doing an end run around the Biden administration. So Florida, Arizona, and Texas have announced that they're going to cooperate on border security because Biden, Kamala, they're completely MIA. There's a good argument to be made that they're actually facilitating all the crime that's happening at the border with human trafficking and drug trafficking. They actually want it to continue. I believe that they're involved in it, but that's another story. But Texas, Arizona, Florida, they've announced that they're going to cooperate with border security. Texas has Governor Abbott announced that he's going to shift some budget resources to finish parts of the wall. So tell us what this means in politics in 2021. You have states basically ignoring the Biden administration.
Donald Trump recognized, even before he became president, that states have ceded too much of their rights and their abilities to the federal government. It got easy and cheaper just to take all that federal money and just step back and let the feds move in and encroach on your own state authority. And so I tell people there was a lot of stuff Trump was doing people didn't understand at the time why he was doing that. But he was getting states ready to step up and start taking that authority back from Washington, D.C. And now he's gone, and Biden's done there. And so I think this just makes it more apparent that states have had enough of Washington, D.C. They've had enough of D.C. coming down here, in Texas. The feds come down here and tell us how we're going to run our border. Well, it's our border. D.C.'s a long way from here. Those coddled politicians in Washington, D.C., they don't understand what property owners are going through when these illegal aliens come through their property and they destroy things and they create destruction and stuff. They do crimes and things like this. Okay, Washington, D.C. is a long way away, and states have needed to assert their rights for some time. But it got easy just to sit back and take all this money. I'm going to give you one example. The Department of Education has no real direct authority to tell a state how to run its school system. So what they do is they offer hundreds of millions of dollars in grants, and they say, if you implement this policy, we will give you $45 million for your state public schools. And basically, it's bribery. That's what they do. They're bribing their way into having influence. But legally, they don't have any influence. You have to hand it to them. They pay for that influence. And so that's one of the biggest problems. People don't understand why you see all these school boards embracing critical race theory, why they're embracing all this gender insanity. It's because they're being paid to do that. That's why. They want that sweet federal money coming into their local school boards. That starts in Washington, D.C., and it funnels down to the states, and then it funnels down to the county level. And so that's what's going on. And so what's happening now is states are standing up and saying, we don't want your money. We don't want you coming here and meddling and telling us, how to handle our border, how to handle our gun rights, how to handle our high schools, how to handle girls' sports, how to handle any of this stuff. It's not your business. It's not your place. And so instead of being passive and just, because when the federal government picks one state, they did this under Obama. I remember when Jan Brewer in Arizona tried to stand out by herself and resist some of the federal insanity on the border. Obama flew down there personally. And they see the pictures of him, and they're pointing fingers at each other and having a very animated discussion. To remind Jan Brewer that the border is a federal matter. They'll take care of that, and you get back in your place, woman. Trying to tell her that, if the feds will handle this and you're over the line, and you need to back off. And because it was just Arizona by itself. See, but right now, what's happening? The Biden administration is being overwhelmed. There's too many states. There's too many states doing this stuff, passing these laws about trans girls cannot compete in girls' sports. There's like 11 or 12 states that have passed those so far. You got to sue them all, okay? Yeah. And now on the border, you have all of these states cooperating with each other. And these are state resources, okay? What's the federal government going to do? Come in and say to Texas and Florida and Arizona, you can't spend your state tax money like that. We're not going to allow it, I don't see them having much success doing that. This is state money. It's not federal money. So that's why this is going to be effective. Yeah. There's very little Biden can do to stop it.
Yeah. It's pretty dramatic, too. And if you remember from history, when a new president comes in and wins in a landslide, you don't see this kind of action within 6-7 months, right? There's a honeymoon period, and all the politicians at the state level and local level want to appear to be attaching themselves to this super popular incoming president. And they're basically just turning their backs on him and saying, we don't want this. We didn't vote for this. And we're going to do it at the state level like we're supposed to.
Well, Biden, we're told he got 81 million votes.
Right.
Election. He should be just about the most popular president ever. If he really got 81 million votes, but nobody with a functioning brain thinks he got that, nearly that much. And so he started out with some support at the beginning, but you look at all the stuff he's done, and it's about like 5 months so far. He's done so many things to disappoint his own base. He's broken so many promises that what little support he did have is bleeding away. And I think Trump has made several statements where he understands this. It doesn't matter what numbers they claim for you. If you don't have any real popular support, you can't effectively govern this country. Now, these people spent 4 years claiming Trump was increasingly isolated. He had no popular support. He was a lunatic. He was doing too many radical, hateful, insane things. The country was definitely not behind him. But you look at all that he got done, how much legislation got through Congress and things like that. He made real changes to things. Okay, here's Biden in 5 months. The support is bleeding away. He just had a highly embarrassing trip to Europe, where he's making gaffe after gaffe, and the picture just came out of that French sissy Macron, literally sticking his finger
in his face.
And so people are doing an end run around Biden. They're ignoring him. Okay, he does not have the popular support. There's others that he can't get any legislation through Congress. The very first thing that they tried to pass, the H.R. 1 for the People Act, they want to enshrine and code all of these abuses into our electoral system. That's not going to pass. And he's not going to get any legislation through Congress. He's basically, his presidency is spinning its wheels. It's not going anywhere. Meanwhile, states they're throwing up what I call the red state firewall. They're going to shield themselves from Biden's agenda. They're making it very clear that they're not going to go along with where he is trying to take the country. They're resisting it. And so people remember the Trump years with the media constantly saying, this guy's a lunatic, nobody's following this guy. This guy is literally Hitler, but he's getting all this stuff done and things are great. Then Biden comes in and the media's like, oh my God, this guy is awesome. He's terrific. He's fantastic. He's doing everything right. And nobody cares. Nobody's following him. It's going to become increasingly absurd.
Completely absurd. There's so many topics. I mean, there's so much going on. I want to ask you about one more thing, and hopefully we can do this again in a week and talk about some of the other things. But it's becoming more and more obvious that January 6th was a false flag. That it wasn't really Trump supporters doing anything. There was maybe some trespassing. Even that is debatable because they opened the doors. Tucker Carlson had a really amazing segment with an author from Revolver, a publication called Revolver, which seems to indicate that the majority of the perpetrators are actually working for the FBI, which is absolutely shocking to contemplate. Like, when I saw it live, it seemed so ridiculous because Trump was still speaking over a mile away. And there was maybe 1 million people there listening to Donald Trump. So they weren't trying to jump over barricades. They were listening to President Trump speak. And, we saw the guy with the goat horns taking selfies and everybody's just walking around freely. So to me, it seemed completely ridiculous. But now it turns out that maybe the FBI itself actually instigated this whole thing. What do you have to say about January 6th?
The FBI has a history of entrapping people. They have a history of sending informants. There's a funny but perceptive cartoon I saw recently. Somebody do a bunch of stick figures. The top stick figure is a very excited young fellow saying, "Hey guys, guess what? I joined a cool militia." And then the next frame shows the militia, and it's like informant, FBI agent, informant, and developmentally challenged teenager who thinks he has friends now. Okay, and that's usually how it goes. I was at the Ellipse on January 6th. Okay. I was there.
All right.
I did not go to the Capitol building. I was not there for what happened after the speech, what was happening while the speech was going on. See, that insurrection narrative was always incoherent. Somebody wanted to create the impression that a bunch of wild, out-of-control Trump supporters stormed the Capitol in an armed insurrection and tried to get in there and stop the certification of the votes. Somebody put a lot of work into creating this.
Yep.
And you can debate why Trump didn't spot it, why Trump didn't know what was going on, or whatever, how Trump handled it. Okay.
Can I
interject
just really quickly? I believe Trump did know about it. And that's why he was late. And that's why his speech seemed to kind of meander. I think he knew it was going to happen at exactly that moment. And he wanted his supporters.
Yeah, Trump was over 2 hours late.
Right. He wanted his supporters to stay right there.
I know, because I sat in the freezing cold waiting for him.
Right. But he wanted you there when this invasion or trespassing of the Capitol took place. He wanted you standing there in the cold, listening to him. He didn't want you over at the Capitol. It
must be remembered that Trump supposedly provoking or inspiring this insurrection with his speech was what they impeached him for the second time. This was an operation, I believe, made by some people at the FBI and to create an incident at the Capitol building while Trump was speaking. And Trump messed up their timeline because he did not finish speaking. He did not show up on time to finish speaking, and so he completely messed up their timeline. He was still speaking when this insurrection thing was going on at the Capitol building. I studied January 6th extensively. I realized that if he had shown up when he was supposed to, and he had spoken for his usual length of time, which was about an hour and a half to 2 hours, then the timing of this would have worked. But because he was 2 hours late, they threw him off. They started before he ever even finished his speech.
That's right.
And so the whole reason this was done, I believe, by rogue people at the FBI, or a subset within the FBI, was that they wanted to provide Democrats with an event. See, they need to destroy this guy as a political force. This was what this was. This was an attempt to destroy him. He provoked an insurrection. We're going to impeach him a second time. Yeah. Okay, they keep believing they can get this guy, and they can literally end him as a political force in America, and that's what this insurrection was supposed to do. It was supposed to make Donald Trump a vile footnote in American history. He's supposed to utterly destroy him. And so that's why that last column that I wrote, these people can hardly believe what they're saying. Not only is he not destroyed, he's coming back. He's stronger than ever. He's taking control of the GOP. He's building his own slate of candidates for the primaries, for the GOP primaries. There's going to be people like on one side from the GOP swamp, there's going to be like Mark Walker and Lisa Murkowski and Liz Cheney. There's going to be these people running on that side, and that's the GOP swamp slate in the primaries. And then Trump's going to have his own slate, and he's going to have his own hand-picked people. And he is building a massive war chest that he's going to use to fund these candidates and help them beat the swamp GOP. Okay, so but you go back to January, they thought this would be it. We're going to get this guy. He's going to be finished. We're going to make him so radioactive, nobody will want to get within 3 or 4 city blocks of him. Okay. And that's what this was an attempt to do. And it was always incoherent. It never made any sense. Now the evidence is coming out. The videos are coming out. There's a lot of evidence they're holding back still, I'm sure. But just based on what we've seen so far, yes, it does look like there were FBI agents and informants that were used to create the impression this was a wild crowd of Trump supporters that were breaking into the Capitol building. They were going to rush in there and break down the door to the congressional chamber. They were going to rush in there and stop Mike Pence from doing this, from finishing that vote. And that's the narrative. And it was always incoherent, and it was never true.
It's ridiculous. There were several senators and congressmen that were ready to object to the electors. And then after this, the crowd came into the Capitol. They came back like Kelly Loeffler, for example. She goes, I'm very sorry, but I have to withdraw my objection now, which was just, heartbreaking at the time. But we can kind of see the master plan here. I believe the administration recommended 10,000 National Guard troops, and Nancy Pelosi overruled it. So I do believe Trump knew that this was going to happen. He did what he could to prevent it. But he also set it up so that it would become obvious with time that he was not the instigator of that event.
I got to say something, here, but there's an intense argument within the conservative ranks and the MAGA community ever since January 6th. Well, it started in November. January 6th just accelerated it. It's in the January 20, of course, when Trump left the White House. Okay, one side of this argument that said Trump failed. He wimped out. He should have used the military. He should have called in the army. He had a constitutional duty not to let this stuff go forward.
Yeah.
He wimped out. He should have seized control in these states or whatever and done anything possible to keep that election stuff from being certified, and he didn't do it. He failed the country.
Yeah.
Okay. And on the other side of the argument is what was best for the country was not plunging it into a civil war. And what was best for the country was not having a president from Washington, D.C. try to impose all these changes that were going to be needed by executive fiat and just a raw exercise of federal power, military power in the end. Okay, that was not what was best for the country. And if you look around at what's happening, okay, there is a lot of changes that need to happen in the American election system. There's a lot of changes that need to happen. There's 30 states at least where we need to move away from these compromised election machines. We need to move back to a paper election system with checks and balances and security, solid security features, okay, that we don't have now. And if Trump, I really believe that if Trump had gone and called in the military and federal agents and tried to seize control back in November, December, January, okay, it would have been a huge mistake. We would not be seeing what we're seeing now. It would have been trying to force it from the top down. Okay.
Yeah.
I think what this country actually needed was a grassroots movement from the ground up, going the opposite direction. Instead of Washington, D.C. forcing stuff on the country by military force or federal force, you have a movement of grassroots citizens who are literally changing how their states do elections. They're changing how their states, the relationship their state has with Washington, D.C. Again, red state firewall. Okay, that's what we were talking about. And I think that's what the country needed. So maybe, and I realize it sucks that Joe Biden is in charge now, and he's reversing some of the things that Donald Trump did. And in the 4 years he was in office. But I really think when I look at this and say, what is best for the country? What's the best way to go about exposing the election theft and making sure it never happens again? Was it a civil war? Was it Trump seizing power, seizing control to stay in power? Or was it a grassroots movement of American citizens getting involved and getting active and changing the system from the ground up?
Yeah.
And I have to go with option number 2.
Makes a lot more sense now than it did 6 months ago to me. People said, well, a majority voted for Trump. That's obvious. But there's a substantial minority that did not vote for Trump, and they would have seen this as a dictatorial abuse of power. People always say today, well, if election fraud is exposed, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Well, it's unprecedented. There is no historical precedent, so we don't know. It's more important that the American people understand what happened. It's more important that the American people understand what happened. And then they will figure it out. They will figure out the way forward, right? It could be a constitutional amendment. It could be just putting Joe Biden in handcuffs. Who knows? Who knows how it's going to turn out? But it's more important at this point that people understand what happened, that the fraud gets rooted out and exposed. And then we will figure out what to do next.
Okay. What you just said, I need to go back a little bit and expound on this for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. If Trump tries to do this preemptively, like before November 3rd, he said, now look, they're going to try to steal this election. I cannot allow that to happen. I'm sending in, the federal agents to seize control. Okay, even before the elections are certified in the states between November and January, he says, okay, look, he acts preemptively. He says they will try to do this, okay, but I'm going to stop them. I'm going to exercise my raw federal power and stop them from doing this. Okay. They can always make the argument he's lying. They would never have done that. They always be able to make that argument. Okay. I think there's a reason that he looked at it, and he's a very smart guy. He decided that acting preemptively was not going to work. And so he actually had to let, because if he said, you know, that guy's about to rob the store, and you went and tackle him first. You know, you tackle him before he even enters the store.
Yeah.
And they go to trial. No, I was able to say, how, you know, and he come and say, I was not going to do that. I was going in there to buy some milk. You know? Yeah. He make up some story. Okay. But you wait till he goes in the store and he robs it and he's coming out, and then you tackle him. Okay. Then you expose him. Okay. So I know a lot of people don't agree with us, but it's actually easier to prove a crime, to prove somebody's nature and what they were doing after the fact than it is before the fact. And so I believe doing it this way, okay, doing it not preemptively, but in a controlled way where you're documenting everything.
Yep.
And the country's forced to watch it. Forced to pay attention and watch it while everything's being documented. Okay, you end up not only we're going to end up not only fully exposing the election fraud and the corrupt system they created to enable them to commit that fraud. And we're going to end up not only exposing that and reforming it. We're going to end up never having to deal with these people again. Yeah. Okay, the Democratic Party, the shadow cabal, they're all going to be completely exposed. Yep. Because Trump let them do it. That's going to lead to them being completely exposed and the huge crimes they committed. Because basically, when you do this type of thing to our American elections, that is a national security thing. You have harmed this country by doing this. That is basically, you have to call it what it is. It's treason for Americans to do this to their own country. It's treason.
Yes. So, and it has to become obvious to everybody. And Brian, you're doing an amazing job exposing all this to people and explaining it to people in a very easy to understand way. These are very complex topics, but I just want to commend you for the work you're doing. It's awesome. So I hope we can continue this conversation maybe in a week or so.
Sure, I'd be happy to come back. I'm sure there'll be more stuff happening this week. We have more to talk about when we get together again. Things are really happening. I expect some developments, by the way, on that federal grand jury. I think there are some people trying to sort the reason they let that Apple subpoena expire, or a non-disclosure order expire, is because it's over and they shut down. Nothing's going to happen. I'm not really sure about that. There's another reason why you let a subpoena expire, that you don't need it anymore because you have enough. And, it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to watching Adam Schiff run around and scream, because remember, this is a guy that spent almost 4 years running around selling the collusion hoax, talking about all the evidence he'd seen. Oh, I've seen mountains of collusion evidence, you know. And at the time he was just lying his ass off, and you know, he's defending Crossfire Hurricane, defending the Steele dossier, defending all this fake evidence that was used to keep the Trump-Russia hoax going. And now he's going to spend weeks and months running around screaming all the evidence that he was leaking is fake. It's all fake.
Yep.
Okay, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yep. There's lots to talk about regarding COVID and the lab in Wuhan, and apparently a Chinese spy, a major Chinese figure, just defected to the United States and gave a copy of Hunter Biden's laptop to the Washington Post, so they can't claim they haven't seen it. So there's so much going on.
He gave it to the Defense Intelligence Agency.
Right. Which is a good thing, because it's harder and harder to say it doesn't exist. It's a Russian fabrication, and important people have got copies of it. So Great talking to you, Brian. And we'll get this transcribed and published pretty quick.
Great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really happy that you guys transcribed the video. That's a great thing to do. A lot of places just let their automatic captioning service try to handle that. And so I think you guys have to do a very accurate transcription. So that's great.
It took me about, I did it myself, and it took about 12 hours. And with the cross-talking, it was difficult in parts, but I think I got it pretty good. We can really get the gist of the important parts of the conversation. So thank you for the compliment, and we will do it again. The same.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Okay.
See you soon,
Bye.
Luke.
See you soon.